Hello, welcome to the Jack and Jack show. Jack Stroudley in Joe Sansom's absence for a couple of weeks as Joe is in Jamaica on holiday. Fair enough to him. Hopefully he's having a lovely time. Jack Stroudley, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Happy to be back on the channel as always. A little bit cold. I'm sure Joe hasn't got that problem right now as he sips on a nice cocktail at a beach in Jamaica. But we can't have it all,
Mate, it's very nice. There we go. Sorry, it's very nice. I bet he's having a nice time. And hopefully he is. We'll see him in a couple of weeks' time. It's almost the week anniversary of our Ipswich away trek, which was very good fun. But today we were going to just briefly talk about that United game, and then of course look ahead to Aston Villa. But first, a word from our sponsors, Green King Sport. Thanks so much for the sponsorship this season. For the whole of the season, the 23-24 season, Fulhamish is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football, of course, is more than a game. Green King Sport pubs are showing every televised game and every televised Fulham game all season. So if you can't make it down to Craven Cottage and you don't want to watch it on a stream, then head down to a Green King pub to watch the action. They've also recently launched the Instagram page where there are deals and competition. So give them a follow and you'll be helping out Fulhamish as well. Let's have a look at the weekend's fixtures after the chaos that was last night at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're in the early kickoff on TNT Sports away to Wolverhampton Wanderers. The late kickoff is the Cherries, Bournemouth on Sky up against Newcastle again at 5:30. Make of that what you will. And then on Sunday, West Ham United at home to Nottingham Forest on Sky. And then the second edition of Super Sunday is Walham Green versus Manchester City. Fulham, of course, play on the Sunday at 2:00 against Aston Villa, who we will talk about in about 5 minutes. But briefly, let's touch on Manchester United at home. It was 0-0. It was 0-0. I was thinking, great point. And then suddenly, Bruno Fernandes, after João Palhinha could not clear the ball after a very good performance from João Palhinha. Your thoughts, Jack? 1-0 United.
It seems to be a bit of an occurrence against Manchester United that we play okay, and then you think, oh, maybe we're going to get something from the game, and then right at the death, they score a goal, which is obviously very frustrating. I didn't actually see the game. I was working the Oxford United FA Cup fixture, so I wasn't able to watch the game. But from what I saw in the highlights, again, you can't really take too much from that. It seemed that Fulham were okay. They seemed to be matching Manchester United well. It didn't seem like they had many clear-cut chances. United, obviously, McTominay had the goal disallowed for offside very early on. And then obviously the goal, which I'm sure we'll get onto right at the death. But Fulham, I think it was like 18 shots, but only 2 or 3 of them were on target. It's seems to be the story of the season that we just can't seem to put the ball in the back of the net. Onana made a couple of very good saves. And then, as the game progresses, you're just praying and hoping that, let's take a point. It's a great result. Let's move on. Maybe a little bit of a panic from João Palhinha for their goal, kicks the ball out when he's probably got a little bit more time on his hands, goes straight to Bruno Fernandes, who kind of weaves his way in and scores. Very frustrating, to say the least, but it's a Big 16. It is what it is, I guess, at the end of the day.
I mean, sometimes in a game, you are fighting for your lives to sort of hold on to a draw and see the game out. But it didn't feel as though Manchester United were, bringing it on us in waves and waves of attack. It felt quite open up until the end of the game as well, where Fulham were sort of finding pockets of space to break into. Alex Iwobi sort of leading the charge. And it didn't feel as though United were absolutely peppering us to the point where I was like, we are clinging on for dear life. And, there was that moment before they scored where the ball was bouncing around the box and someone had to clear it. And it goes back to the Sunday League sort of saying, if in doubt, get it out. And that's to João Palhinha, just punt it for a throw-in. And, yes, they'd keep the pressure on, but that initial danger would have been averted. But it's one of those things, in the snap moment, you just want to get the ball as far away of the goal as possible, and Pellegrini just didn't get any purchase on the ball. It's the end of the game. He'd been running around all game and had a brilliant performance up until that moment. I'm not going to sit here and go, it's all João Pellegrini's fault. And United, yet again, getting a 6th win of the season, all by 1-0, and again being incredibly unconvincing. So that's the frustrating element to it. I thought Fulham played really well. It was disappointing to concede that goal from the set piece, albeit it was offside, but it seemed very easy for McTominay to sort of sneak around the back and prod home. But after a very extended VAR check, it was chalked off, where the referee went over to the monitor for an offside, which doesn't really happen often, which was strange. Couple of yellow cards, 5 yellow cards for Fulham. Robinson, Palhinha, which it wasn't a yellow again. Iwobi, Wilson, and Jimenez. But I thought actually for 5 or 10 minutes in the second half, we had them pinned back, and we'd forced Onana into a couple of saves, and we looked pretty good. It's just one of those where on another day we see that out for a point, and it would have been a very good point, because right now, Jack, we sit. Sorry, Jack.
That's okay. I'll get over it.
We sit 15th, which is not a great place to be in the table. There is a nice sort of 6-point gap between us and 18th. I wouldn't necessarily say we're in a relegation battle at this moment in time, but there is a worry that if a result doesn't come against Aston Villa, then we've got to beat Wolves, and then we go to Anfield.
Yeah, I think that, last season was so fantastic that a drop-off was to be a bit expected. However, I think it's maybe been a slightly uninspiring season so far. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. We've beaten the teams that we needed to. Like we beat Everton, we beat Luton and Sheffield United. And we've also picked up decent results against Arsenal and Brighton as well on top of that. And I think we're kind of thankful in the fact of, you look at the teams who are below us, and they do seem to be pretty poor and struggling to, pick up those results. As you mentioned, 3 of our next 4 games are at home. Obviously, it's Wolves, Forest, and West Ham, I think, are the next 3 games at the Cottage. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, Liverpool is in there as well. So you're looking at those 3 home games. Obviously, we've got Villa, which we'll go on to as well. Those 3 home games in particular where, Fulham really do need to pick up some points to, try and extend that gap and alleviate any pressure and concerns that the fan base have. But as of right now, I'm not particularly worried. I just think, for me, after the window that we had, it was kind of just like, let's, try and accrue as many points as possible, try not to be too concerned. And then if we're in a semi-decent position in January, and then we can, invest some money, and then maybe, extend that gap even further. And then, come like March, April, we're just not worried at all.
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance that teams below us pick up more points. But, you do look at those 4 teams in Burnley, Sheffield United, Luton and Bournemouth as sort of the 4 favourites to go down at the moment. And if you look at the weekend's fixtures, just quickly get them up here. I mean, on Saturday, where are we? Here we go. On Saturday, Burnley, go to Arsenal at the Emirates. That's not going to be easy. Of course, you never know what's going to happen in football. We've seen shock results in our lives before, and there'll be more shock results going forward. Luton, go to Old Trafford, and they put in a very spiriting performance against Liverpool on Sunday. And Bournemouth they host Newcastle, as we said earlier. And then on Sunday, Sheffield United away at Brighton. And, we saw a couple of weeks ago, that's not an easy fixture as well. I mean, there is a possibility that we go to Villa, we get a point or a result, we'll come on to it now. And, we just gradually... What I feel is that there's going to be a point in time where perhaps 4 teams in Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield United, and Luton get cut adrift because the gap is just too much between them, us, Everton, Forest, who else down there?
Wolves,
Palace, Wolves, yeah, and then we'll see. So we will see. Let's go on to Villa. They play Thursday. They lost last weekend to Nottingham Forest, and they weren't that good. Is this a good time to play them, Jack?
Well, I mean, they'll come into it maybe not as in much confidence as they have done in prior weeks. And obviously, as you mentioned, they're Thursday night in the Conference League. They need to get a result in there as well. So it is a good time to play Aston, as good as any to play Aston Villa. But I mean, that doesn't deter away from the fact that they are a very good side, particularly at home. So it's going to be a very, very tricky game. And I'm just, I just want us to go there and kind of give it a go. Don't be too fearful of them or this, that, and the other. And, we've shown this season that we can get results away from home in games that we're not particularly expected to. As I mentioned earlier, points away at Arsenal and Brighton. So, if Fulham give it a go, then, who knows? There is scope, and Nottingham Forest proved on the weekend there is scope to beat this Aston Villa side and to at least be able to nick a goal and just kind of see what happens.
And of course, they host AZ Alkmaar on Thursday night at Villa Park. We then go there on the Sunday before they go to Spurs after the international break. Of course, there's an international break coming up next. So it's sort of maybe a good time for everyone in the Premier League to sort of take stock. It's been a very chaotic few weeks in the Premier League. And I, for one, feel like we need another break. As much as it is annoying to sort of stifle momentum, but maybe a couple of weeks off Fulham and then, we get back to proceedings on the Monday Night Football against Wolves. Let's just have a look at the lineup they played up against Nottingham Forest. Might give us an indication of what they play against us. Martinez in goal at the back, Digne, Torres, Konza, Matty Cash, Zaniolo, Douglas Luiz, who's been on absolute fire this season, especially at Villa Park, Boubacar Kamara, as opposed to Abubakar Kamara, and John McGinn up front. Was it up front? Diaby and Ollie Watkins. And they brought off the bench Leon Bailey, Dendoncker, Diego Carlos, and Yuri Tielemans. I mean, it's a very good squad. They're doing very, very well in the league, despite defeat at the weekend. They sit in 5th, just 2 points off Arsenal. I think it's going to be tricky. And I was saying to Joe a few weeks ago that, apart from maybe right now Manchester City, when you go to the Etihad, I think Villa are one of the most threatening teams at home in the Premier League, maybe in the top 5 leagues. Their form at home, I think they've won 12 in a row, which includes the win they got over us at the back end of last season with Tyrone Mings' header in a game where Fulham were just not very good at all, actually. In fact, Manor Solomon came close after a minute. We all thought it was in. It wasn't in. And from there, that was it, really. I think we'll probably put up a sterner test on Sunday. Give me your thoughts on an 11 and a score prediction before we finish.
So I'll go with the assumption that the players that were out for the United game aren't back for this Aston Villa game. Because obviously there were a few out here, obviously Tete and Diop, probably the main, and obviously Tosin, but Tosin's been out for a while as well. And I'll also go with the assumption that Rodrigo Muniz is out as well. Obviously he came off,
yes,
in floods of tears against Manchester United. So I'll go with the assumption that he's out as well. So Leno in goal, then Castagna, Bassi, Ream, Robinson, Polinia. Then I would go with Lukic and Iwobi. I wouldn't play Pereira. I think that maybe in this kind of game you'd want to maybe kind of try and pack out the midfield a little bit more. And I think that Lukic, playing slightly deeper is able to, bring the ball forward a little bit and bring others into play. The same with Alex Iwobi, who seems to be improving game on game in that midfield role. On the wings, I will go with Willian and Bobby Reid. I think maybe Bobby Reid could help provide some more defensive stability as well.
Yes,
I think Villa are going to be, kind of peppering the goal opportunity. So I think having Bobby Reid there is definitely helpful. And he's, picked up a few goals this season as well. So, he's not like he's shy of form. And then up top, I will go with Vinicius just because I think that on the ball, I think he's slightly better than Jimenez. And I think the way that if we're going to score on the weekend, it's going to be through kind of counter-attacking. So you maybe want someone who's going to hold the ball up, bring others into play. I think that at the moment, Vinicius is the most suited to that in terms of our attacking options. And then in terms of a score prediction, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I can't see us winning. I think Aston Villa are flying at the moment. They've made so many signings over the last few seasons, and they've kind of threatened to be this really good side. Obviously, Unai Emery came in October last season, and from then they've gone from strength to strength. They invested well again in the summer, bringing in kind of Diaby and Zaniolo. So I'm going to go with a 3-1 Aston Villa, which is very pessimistic, but I just can't see it, unfortunately.
I don't think Joe Sansom's ever sort of backed us to lose, apart from maybe when we played Liverpool on the opening day, or maybe when we played Man City down the last couple of years. He's usually pretty positive. But you've gone with a 3-1 defeat.
That's why I'm the first reserve. That's why I'm the substitute.
Jay Cartwright of the Jack and Joe show. I agree with your team. That's the team I'd go with completely. Score prediction wise, I think we're gonna see a little bit more from Fulham defensively. Gosh, Zaniolo and Diaby and Bailey off the bench and Watkins down the middle. It petrifies me. And all those Villa fans in the opposite the away, and they're obviously gonna be trying to rattle us all afternoon, I'm sure. 0-0 between Aston Villa and Fulham. I think we'll hold them out. They'll get quite frustrated. It will get to a point in the last 10 where we're actually looking like we're going to win the game. We'll probably have an amazing chance with Vinicius, who just heads it over from about 6 yards out. And it's all heads in hand. What could have been on the way home after our delicious curry we're going to be getting in Birmingham. I'm sure of that. Little bit of a quick one today, but thanks so much for being here, Jack. Despite you predicting a loss, we'll see you maybe next week for the review and to see if you were right or you were wrong.
Yeah, cheers for having me, mate. If you do have me back next week, I would love to be proven wrong. Safe travels to everyone making the journey up to Villa. I won't be there, unfortunately. Work duty calls, but it should be a good day out. Villa Park's an impressive ground. There's some decent pubs around there, so it should be a laugh.
No, you are right, actually. What's going on here at Dortmund? They're throwing something on the pitch. All the fans of tennis balls. What are they protesting? Is it the fact that they're obviously going to lose the title again to Bayern Munich because they failed to invest and sell all their players? I mean, I just don't get it. Villa Park, I didn't really realise it until last season, but it's such an incredible ground. From the away end, you've got a really good view of the whole end. And then obviously the stand opposite is really nice. I think alongside Anfield and Villa Park, those are one of my two favourite grounds to visit in the Premier League. It's just a magnificent ground. I think it's like the 5th time I'm going now on Sunday, but it's really got something special to it. And of course, we beat them in the playoff final all those years ago, but that doesn't really seem to matter anymore. We're both in the same league, and they're in Europe and we're not. So joke's on us, really. So yeah, we'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching. Jack, thanks so much for being here.
Cheers. Thank you very much, mate.
And guys, enjoy the game on Sunday. We'll speak to you next Wednesday. Go well and come with Fulham.